today's video, we're going to be painting up a Tiefling Rouge from the Dungeons & Dragons Wizkids range. Okay, so starting off with our Tiefling Rouge here, what we're going to do is we're going to come in here with basalt grey from Vallejo, and we're going to be using this for the skin. Now I'm not going to be going with your sort of typical ordinary red Tiefling here. I'm actually going to be going with this dark greyish, nearly black colour scheme. I thought I'd switch it up from the usual Tieflings you see that are either a very bright red or a purple or a blue like that. So just something to switch it up a little bit. Thought I'd change up that colour palette just a little bit from what I would usually do, and show off some other colours that you can use for painting up these Wizkids models. And a good thing about it, these Wizkids models are already pre-primed, so you don't have to worry about priming them, so it makes it even easier and quicker. So just making sure that we're going to get all these areas like the tail, the tips of the hands as well. There's just a little bit poking through the gauntlets he has on. Now the tail here doesn't have an actual defined edge where it meets up with his clothing, so I'm just going to be putting that on there, just sort of stopping about halfway up the back, just letting it end right there. So now we have all the skin done, what we're going to do is we're going to come in now with some matte white, and we're going to be using the matte white to be painting in the Tiefling's eyes. Now you can paint in the Tiefling's eyes any colour you want, whether you want red or yellow or any colour you want, and I'm just coming in here with white just to really make it stand out against all that dark greyish black we've put on. And again, I'm just doing my usual eye technique, which is being a little bit messy with a fine tip brush. I'm dabbing it on there, getting the whole eye socket area complete, waiting for it to dry, and then just coming back with our original skin color and just carefully brushing around the edge until I get the shape that I need. Okay, so now with the eyes done, what we can do is we can now move on by using some royal purple from Vallejo. I'm going to be using this to be doing the main part of our rogue here's clothing, which is all this bit here. Now I'm not going to be doing the top bit here, sort of like a heavy like pauldron sort of thing going on the top of him, so I'm just going to be leaving that out because I'm going to be doing that a slightly different color. So basically all the under the base part of our sort of jacket cloak thing he's wearing here, and as you can see the part where I've just gone up as far as I think the tail should go, and I'm just going to come in with the color that we're using right now to just cut off that part for the tail, so there's a clear separation between the tail and the clothing there that we have on. So making sure that if you need to, paint is just a little bit watered down here, so I will need to come back in with a second coat once the first coat is dry as well. Okay, so once we have all our base color of our clothing done, we're going to come in now with some alien purple, and this is the color that we're going to be using for the top of his roguish outfit that we've got here. So the part that I said we're going to miss, and the last step is the part now that we're going to be painting, so just the top bit here. And as you can see, I've watered down just a little bit too much with my paint, so I'm going to have to make sure that I go over it nice and evenly, wait for it to dry, and then come over with a second layer. And also I've just come in with a little bit finer brush just so I can get in these tips, and we're also going to be doing the gauntlets in these colours, so don't forget about those as well. And he has little armbands as well on his arms, which we're going to be leaving blank for now because I'm going to be doing them in a different colour, but by all means if you want to do them in the same purple, go right ahead. Okay, so now once we've built up our layers of paint on there and it's all dry and ready for us to move on to the next step, we're going to come in now with pale blue from Vallejo, and I'm going to be using this pale blue to be doing his pants colour. This thing, it's quite a light colour. I thought it would stand out quite well against all these dark purples we've got on here and the grey of his skin. So just giving a light colour in there to just pop out just a little bit of detail and not have the pants get lost in with all the other colours that we're placing on here. So it's a reasonably darkish colour palette we've got on here so far. So just again being careful to not paint over the areas where we've painted before, and just making sure that we get a good coverage with two layers if you have to. Okay, so once all the pants are painted up, what we're going to do now is we're going to come in with some Greenskin here from Army Painter, and this is the colour that I said we're going to be using for the armbands that we left just before. So making sure we get a good coverage here of the armbands, making sure that it may be a little bit hard to tell on camera, but there is actually like a leather armband sculpted onto here. It's a little bit hard to see with my camera not focusing properly, but just trying to get a good coverage over all that area. Try not to spill over the area of the skin we've already painted up, as well as the gauntlets as well. So just take your time in here, get in with a small brush if you need to just get those areas. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to come in with an oak brown, and we're going to be using the oak brown to do our Tiefling Rouge's leather boots here. So we just want to make sure we get a nice good even coverage over the leather boots, while trying to avoid the areas we've already painted up. So again, just if you need to, come in with a smaller brush. I just have sort of a base standard brush for this. Trying to give a really good coverage, and you can see here that I've just watered paint down just a little bit. Now, what I do with the paint is for every sort of drop of paint I put in, basically all I do is I just dip my brush in the water, place it next to the paint, and just mix it in just a little bit, just to add in that teeny bit of water to make it a little bit easier for everyone to follow what I do when I paint these colours on. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to come in with some Vallejo Caqui, and we're going to be using this to be painting up basically his dagger holsters here that he has just on the side of him. So we're just using it to do just a quick paint job over the top of that, as well as a little bit of rope or leather, whatever it is. I'm not quite sure what it is there. Just a little bit of that stylish flair of detail there. We're also going to be doing in the khaki. Now we're just going to be doing on these two. We're going to be leaving the pockets that he has on him, and we're going to be doing that a little bit later in a different color. So again, this is totally up to you whether you want to do it in this brown or another brown that we do later on. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be moving on with some mahogany brown from Vallejo now, and this is the part where I said we're going to be doing our pockets in a different color. So I'm going to be doing the pockets and just the last little bits of leather working he has on him in this mahogany brown, which is going to make it pop out against the khaki color we already have on there, because I didn't want everywhere to be that khaki color, because I think it was just a little bit too bright for the Tiefling Rouge here. So that's why I come in with a darker brown. Now you can use any darker brown you want, or even a black if you want to really give him that sort of nighttime assassin sort of vibe. But I want to have some different colors on here to make him still pop out a lot more, because don't forget we're going to be also shading this down, which is going to darken everything up just a little bit. Okay, so now with all those pockets done, we can now move on with uniform grey. And with the uniform grey, what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be painting up the base that the Tiefling Rouge is on here, being very careful to not paint over the areas of the boots we've already painted up. So just giving a nice quick coverage over the whole area of the base that's already sculpted onto these minis, which is pretty cool that they add in just a little bit of detail to make them stand out from just being on a plain simple round base as well. Okay, so now that we have that base all painted up, what we're going to do now is we're going to come in with some gunmetal from Vallejo, or any metal colour would be fine for these daggers here that we're going to be painting up, but just making sure we get a nice good coverage everywhere with our nice gunmetal here. Just making sure to also try and avoid as much as you can from painting over the areas that we've already painted, because painting over metallics can also be just a little bit difficult to do. You might need to add in quite a few layers of paint, so you to make sure you actually cover up a metallic properly. So be as careful as you can around these points when you were getting into these finer detail parts. But again, totally up to you what colour you want to paint these. I'm just going with a nice generic sort of gunmetal here for this. Okay, so once we have all his daggers painted up and dry, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be moving on with ultramarine blue. Now I'm going to be using this ultramarine blue to be painting in our tiefling's hair, as you can see here, which is kind of a wacky colour to paint for a tiefling's hair colour, but again they're demon people, so there's nothing really out of the window for a hair colour here. And I'm just doing this to give it that little bit more pop than if I were to just paint it either a brown or a black. I think it would sort of just lose a little bit of luster if I didn't come in here with a nice bright colour to really make it stand out amongst all the other pieces that we have on here, as well as just making it something a little bit different to have for a tiefling hair colour. Okay, so once all our hair is all painted up and completely dry, what we're going to do now is we're going to come in with a flesh wash. Now we're just going to be using our flesh wash to be just washing over top of our tiefling's hair colour, just because I like giving that little bit of flesh wash to the hair colour to just give it that little bit of like brown readiness added into the colour of hair. I think it just gives it that slight bit more realism for especially for different colours of hair. It's really trying to give it that slightly realistic look. So doing that is just going to be a cool little added feature to just make it a little bit realer looking. Okay, so now that we have the hair wash all done and dried up, we're going to come in now with some CITADEL nuln oil, and we're going to be using this to wash our tiefling's skin and clothing, except the boots. We're going to be leaving the boots here. So the reason why I've done this, and instead of going over a flesh wash over the skin colour like I usually would, is because I want this tiefling to feel dark and demonic sort of thing. He's a Tiefling Rogue, so I want him to make it so he can sort of blend in with his backgrounds and stuff like that. And I think by giving a black wash is going to really add to the demon shadowy look that I'm trying to go for here. Whereas I think going with the flesh wash would sort of tone it up more towards a browny reddish colour, which would make it probably look a lot more like skin. But since tieflings are otherworldly demonic sort of beings, I felt going with nuln oil would be a cool way to accentuate that. Okay, so once we have the nuln oil all dried up and ready to move on to the next step, so what we're going to do is we're going to come in now with some CITADEL agrax EARTHSHADE, and we're going to be doing the boots that I said to leave out just before, as well as the base of our miniature, because the brown wash is going to really make that those brown leather boots pop, and having it on the base to make it look sort of like a worn cave place where you would adventure or travel around. By doing it these colours, as well as it's also going to tie in the two together, so it looks like our Tiefling Rogue here has been travelling through this dark sort of abandoned cave for a little while, so it's just a good way to tie the two colours in together. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to come back in with some of the colours that we've already placed on our miniature, so again like the alien purple, and just all these different colours that we've already used on here. We're going to be just hitting the highest points of our miniatures here, just around the edges, to really make them pop in here. Now this is a optional step to take your miniature up to the next level, but by all means, if you wanted to just leave it where we had it before, it's perfectly fine to do that. But I'm just adding in some more flashy sort of detail in here. Maybe a little bit hard to tell while I'm painting it on here at the moment, but it really does pop on the table a little bit with these sort of edge highlight pieces. And now we're going to do some as well with our basalt grey, and we're going to be doing it with the tiefling skin as well. So to doing that, I'm just going to be hitting the tops of the horns, you can see here, just on the tips, really trying to get the areas where the sunlight would catch. So that's what you want to be thinking about when you're doing the highlighting step like this, is just come in with the colours that you've already used from before, and just hit the areas where you think the sun would really catch these miniatures on here, to give it that sort of more realistic look, as well as it heightens everything up, making it look a little bit cooler when it's sitting on the table. Okay, now that we have all the highlights done, there's just one little bit of highlight we need to do now, so it's coming in with some ash grey. All we're going to be doing is we're going to be dry brushing the base here to catch all those high points of the base and really make it look like the light's shining down on here, to give it that depth from all the wash and the dark grey we put on beforehand. So just a nice easy step to elevate it to that last bit of level that we need to make this miniature all complete. And with that, we have completed painting up our Tiefling Rogue from the Dungeons & Dragons Wizkids range. And you can see, just by adding in some little bits of highlights just to the areas that we shaded over, but just by going back in with our original colours, really popped some of those areas out just that little bit more to add in some cool lighting effects. So with that, guys, I hope this has been useful for you, whether you want to follow along or you just find it fun for me to watch me paint up all these miniatures here. So I'd like to thank you all for that, and if you haven't, please consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoy what I do here, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.